Welcome to Stone Hands, to the hands of stone. The Viking Age was longer than we used to know. The latest research in Norway has led to a conclusion that the ancient ships that were depicted on petroglyphs date back at least 3,000 years ago. And the house type, the old Viking predecessor to the longhouses, they date back to 4,500 years and were used 3,000 years ago. So it shows that there was a sophisticated culture 3,000 years ago and even 4,500 years ago in Scandinavia and also in the Baltics amongst the Finns and the Proto-Germans. It shows that the culture has been different, and the petroglyphs they depict of ships, of crews, 20 to 70 men paddling, not rowing, but paddling like canoes on the great ships that have been made from planks. And still, some of the Norwegian ships have preserved the same building techniques. And the most interesting thing is that those ancient petroglyphs depict of warriors on those ships. Most ships were of 30 to 50 members of crew sitting side by side and paddling on the ships, and the ships had dragon heads sometimes, and some warriors had horned helmets, they had swords and axes, etc. And there's a really important term coined, and it's called Bronzezisation, like globalization, but Bronzezisation. So it shows that in the proto-Viking Age Europe, or actually in the Etruscan, in the Roman period, etc., there was a global or European bronze trading network, as much of the tin was mined in the Cornwall, but also in other places. And the global trade was going from the Scandinavia to the Mediterranean, as some people have found depictions of blue-eyed pharaohs in Egypt. That's quite fascinating. Or blue-eyed people living in the Morocco. Even nowadays, Berbers say that they are descendants of Atlantis. And some blue-eyed folk living in north of Iran. So it shows that the cultural mingling has taken a long time and has happened even in the pre-Christ period, some 3,000 years ago. So it shows that the Scandinavian culture was sophisticated. I'm not saying that they were German or they were Proto-German actually. I would say that it was a Finnic culture that later on merged with the Germanic culture and became what is nowadays known as the Viking cultures from the Scandinavia and from the Finnic tribes, from the Baltics and from the Finland. Eventually, the Finns, they were eaten out from the fall of Scandinavia and they were submerged into the Germanic speaking groups and later into the Slavic speaking groups. But there is a lot of evidence from the sea routes that those ancient Vikings held. The Bronzezisation shows that there was a sophisticated craft of weaponry, craft of shields, craft of armory, but also room for trading, as the older ships were less aggressive, with less weapons depicted, but they had they picked that room for trading, for carrying cargo. And when we look into the Finnic peoples, they are the Venetians, the boat people or the ship people, the ancient maritime law, or the nowadays common law and maritime law have been developed out from the Finnic cultures, but from the Baltic seas. Because the Finnic people built an ancient sea or maritime law, how you can navigate with your vessels through foreign waters, through the waters, what you are allowed to take and what you are not allowed to take. For example, in the chronicles of the Heinrich of Livonia, there are depictions how the Teutonic Crusaders went to cut a tree from the coast, and suddenly there were around 50 ships around them attacking them, marauding, because it was prohibited to cut a tree without a prohibit or without asking from the owner of the place. So the ancient law was formed a few thousand years ago, and it has carried into nowadays common legislation frameworks. So another thing that was quite fascinating by the Finnics, that they are called the sea people or the boat people, because they went to the south, to the Italy, to the Britain, and to the Turkey, nowadays Turkey, to the Holy Roman Empire. But even before that, they had trade routes with Egypt, and Greeks have chronicles about Hyperboreans who came from the north, exchanged their wisdom, their pure wisdom with them, and went back to the north. And when the times became more bloodier, there were more wars, the Hyperboreans refused to come that south as the Greeks were, and they met on the middle grounds. They gave some teachings and wisdoms and some goods, and then they left. So it has been a gradual development of time. There's a Bronze Age fort that lasted for 1,000 years in Estonia, which habited around 10,000 people in times of need, and repelled a large army of 15,000 men coming from the Novgorod Rus. So it was the largest Bronze Age fort in the north, and during the Iron Age as well. So the recent evidence shows that the Viking Age has been for a much longer time than we expected, and they have had those trade routes and trades and cultural mingling with other people for a long time. I would suspect the Phoenicians, the Proto-Vikings, and the ancient Brits and Egyptians, the Greeks, they knew all each other. They were in contact. They were trading some goods. They were trading some weaponry, trading some base minerals, ores, and were quite aware of each other, and even could have spoken some common tongue, as the Celtic and the ancient Finns were connected to the Basques, to the Basque country, and to the Etruscans. So the common tongue must have been quite common to the lands in the Bronze Age. I hope it was interesting. Subscribe and see you next time. I'll link you down the Finnic Viking video that you could understand more broader the topic.